Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSet Network. Friend, we are discussing kinship, and kinship has three major dimensions. One which we have already discussed, the structure of kinship, and the other is family, and the one major dimension of kinship is marriage. In today's lecture, we will see how the changing nature of marriage having impact on kinship. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in studio eminent sociologist Dr. Subhas Mahapatra. He teaches sociology in Delhi University and long experience of teaching about 30 years and written 3 books on different issues of sociology. So I think his knowledge and experience will help us to understand this topic and give insight to understand how understand this kinship. So on behalf, I welcome him for the EduSet lecture on this very topic. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. It's a great opportunity once again to give a concluding remark about the changing nature of marriage and family, that what reflects on the changing system of kinship and society as well. When one speaks about marriage, it's very difficult to develop an universally acceptable definition to marriage, because marriage is not a legitimate sexual relationship between two persons belonging to opposite sex for the reproduction of the children. Marriage is culturally defined, it is socially prescribed, and the functionality of marriage largely differs from one culture to another culture, and further different from one point of time to another point of time. Nowadays in newspapers, very often it appears that there are many people who prefer not to marry, and there are people who are marrying violating to the prescriptive normative codes of the society. Take for example, in case of India, one is supposed to marry within his caste, but outside his gotra. When people marry within their gotra, it gives way to confrontation and conflict. Hue and cry takes place in society that how one is going for a kind of marriage that is not normatively prescribed. So these kind of contradictions making appearance in society, where people prefer to marry on the basis of their choice, on the basis of legitimate provisions of the society, but such kind of marriages are not conforming to normative conditions of the society. We have to analyze this kind of dichotomy, giving importance on the fact that whether people are eager to go for norms or they are interested to go for rules of law. If one goes for marriage conforming to rules of law, questioning to normative provisions of the society, then one would be finding out individual quest for modernity is contesting with cultural commitment to tradition. Therefore, such kind of questioning to marriage which are non-normative, challenges to this kind of marriages, rejection to this kind of marriages, I see them as a contest between modernity and tradition in Indian context. Before we get into the problems in relation to marriage, the changing nature of family and changing form of kinship in India, we have to first look into why is marriage so important? Can there be universal structural character of marriage? How economy defines marriage, society defines marriage. When there is a change in the social system, social structure, that change is having impact on the structure, forms and functions of marriage. Therefore, I would be considering marriage, its structural character, changing functional roles, relating that to the basic forms of social change societies are experiencing over a period of time. To understand different forms of marriage, I have to divide societies into different types. First, I'll be speaking about tribal societies and the forms of marriage there. Then agrarian and peasant societies, forms of marriage there. Industrial society, forms of marriage there. And post-industrial society, post-modern society, and the whole question of marriage. So that we can develop a framework indicating how the changing structural character of society is giving importance on changing social institution within which we can locate marriage, family, and kinship. Large body of anthropological literatures are speaking about various forms of marriages present in tribal societies. Before I get into this anthropological analysis, let me tell you that many philosophers, historians, sociologists are of the opinion that human society started with a form of free sexuality. Marriage was not present during the beginning of human civilization. If one looks into Bakufen, he writes a book called as Mother's Right. And he advocates in that book that during the beginning of human civilization, there was present promiscuity. Institution of marriage has not developed during the beginning of human civilization. For the reason, there was no private property. There was no permanent settlement. There was no institutionalized political order present in society. And man in the state of nature was not a producer. He was a gatherer, directly dependent on state of nature. Therefore, all the people had equal stake over the productive resources in that society. Therefore, man was not trying to control the sexuality of woman. Man didn't have private property that what he can transmit from one generation to another generation by marrying a woman who will be instrumental in producing offsprings. Therefore, a child is born to a mother, and mother and child or children combinedly together constitute a family which is known as matriarchal family. Bakufen goes on to say that women had a great role to play in primitive societies. Women were operating as warriors, they were working as family hunters and gatherers, they were operating as priests, they are the head of the household, enjoying complete authority over the children. Therefore, mother-centric society, women-dominated society came into prominence during the beginning of human civilization. Such kind of analysis about matriarchal family, matriarchal society is also spelled out by Engels, Friedrich Engels. Engels in his book, Marriage, Family, Private Property and State, clearly indicates that it is because of marriage patriarchal families are coming into prominence. And these patriarchal families, the head of the patriarchal families are men, and these men mobilize private wealth and transmit this private wealth from one generation to another generation. Therefore, patriarchal families are evolved to intensify private property, control over the private property, and transmit this private property, what ultimately give rise to the growth of class structure in society. Therefore, rise of class-based inequality in society is a product of private wealth created by private father-headed families, and such families are the products of marriage. Therefore, sexuality is not important in relation to marriage. Property question is more important. So, if you look into the writings of Louis Henry Morgan, he also looks in identical way, indicating that in the beginning of human civilization, in savage culture, promiscuity was present. Promiscuity subsequently gave rise to group marriage, and barbarian civilization came into prominence. With the rise of modern civilization, monogamous families developed, and that monogamous family is giving rise to the growth of a particular society where private wealth is controlled by family, man's authority over women and children are becoming absolute, and to justify this kind of control, power, mobilization of wealth, cultural system and social system developed. Montesquieu also speak in the same way. Therefore, all the early sociologists are looking into the evolution of marriage, family and kinship system in correspondence with the evolution of society. So, marriage is a kind of product of social necessity. Structure and forms of marriage are the products of culture of society. Therefore, marriage is not a matter of voluntaristic choice of an individual. Thus, when we speak about marriage or for that matter family, we have to keep in mind the social structure and cultural structure, and within social structure, economic structure, political structure and so on. A number of anthropologists are taking interest in the study of marriage with reference to the culture of the society. You know, Evans Pritchard makes a brilliant analysis about kind of marriage present in newer society of Africa. I am giving these explanations to you to indicate how difficult it is to develop an universal definition to marriage. Therefore, one should not say marriage makes society, or if marriage is not present, society is going to the state of oblivion or society is going to disintegrate. So, marriage is a product of time and space. Marriage is not a product of voluntaristic choice. Even though it is a matter of voluntaristic choice at times, it either conforms to the prescriptions, normative prescriptions of society, or it questions to it. When marriage is questioning to normative prescriptions of the society, form of marriage may change, patterns of marriage may change, duties and obligations coming out of the people, those who are engaged in wedlock, that may necessarily go for change. So therefore, one has to understand marriage from a larger space than considering marriage as an individual phenomena or primarily a group phenomena. Evans Pritchard finds out that in case of newer society, multiple forms of marriages are present. First kind of marriage is marriage between a man and a woman who are producing offsprings for the continuity of their lineage group. Newer is the strongest form of patriarchal society, and social divisions are taking place in newer society on the basis of kinship. Entire newer society is divided into primary kinship groups. Primary kinship group is further divided into secondary kinship groups. Secondary kinship groups are further divided into tertiary kinship group. And within every tertiary kinship group, we have families present. And within family, there are present individuals playing their roles differently. Now, when there is a conflict taking place between one kinship group and another kinship group, primary, tertiary or secondary, its counterpart is coming together voluntarily, and both are engaged in conflict. And through this conflict, a kind of judgment is coming into prominence, solution to the problem is coming into prominence. Therefore, kinship in many other societies define residence, right to property, right to religion. But in newer society, kinship offers a platform for political mobilization. Therefore, despite they not having a centralized political structure, political activities, mobilizations are greatly taking place in your society on the basis of kinship. So, to develop that kind of kinship, one need to go for marriage. So, in your society, when a person is dying, the possibility of that kinship group's expansion becomes difficult. Therefore, unless kinship group is expanding itself, numerical size of a kinship is very high or strong, one kinship group cannot be giving a befitting reply to another kinship group at the time of conflict. Therefore, for perpetuation, expansion, consolidation of kinship group for diversified purpose, there is a need that kinship group should be subjected to continuity. And that is essentially possible so when marriage takes place and reproduction takes place. Hence, when a person is dying, there is a cultural provision in this society that the dead person's brother will be taking the name of the deceased person and remarry to his dead brother's wife. And he will be keeping sexual relationship with the deceased brother's wife. And from out of this union, the children born will be considered as the legitimate children of the dead brother. So Evans Fisher called this as marriage with the ghost, marriage with the spirit. Such kind of marriage may be laughable in case of other cultures and civilizations, but they have a strong social functionality in case of your society. So, whom to marry? What is the functionality of marriage, purpose of marriage, is not an individual decision. It is prescribed by society and culture divergently in different societies. Therefore, in your society one finds out multiple forms of marriages are present, and these are two different forms of marriage. Another example I will be giving you about marriage in case of Maasai society of Africa. In Maasai society, a woman is given in marriage to a man, and to legitimize this marriage, gifts are exchanged between both the families. But if the woman is not able to carry children, then the man is primarily treating woman very badly. So the woman, she gets out of the wedlock, and she is culturally permitted to marry another woman paying certain quantum of bride wealth. Therefore, a woman is marrying a woman, and the woman to whom the first woman is marrying is identified as female wife. The first woman will be treated as a husband and play the role of a husband towards his female wife. And she will be giving some gift to other men so that they will be offering sexual services to his female wife. And from out of this union, the children are born, will be addressing the female wife as primarily their mother and the female husband as father. Therefore, fatherhood is not always defined on the basis of sex. So, a woman can be a father if it is culturally prescriptive so. Therefore, marriage between two women should be interpreted in a cultural context than being identified, explained in relation to a common term, what we call today as a specific form of homosexuality. Also, one will be finding out in many other societies of Africa, there is a provision, or some society that marriage is present, Lele society that marriage is present. When a man is marrying to a woman, he is supposed to offer some gift to his wife's group. Therefore, man is giving cattle to his wife's brother to get right over his wife. So cattle goes out and a woman comes in. Now, keeping sexual relationship with this woman, children are born. So now, it is believed that a man is getting a wife because he has got cattle. So now this cattle, wife's brother is getting. So he is giving this cattle to somebody else to get a wife for himself. This cattle is known as ritual cattle. So first one is giving that cattle to his wife's brother to get a wife. Then secondly, this cattle is shifted to another person who gives away his sister to primarily this person to marry that person. Therefore, cattle is making a person eligible to get a wife. And this cattle is ritual cattle. When the cattle is moving from one family to another family, people consider this cattle is carrying ritual power. Therefore, before they marry their actual wife, human wife, they marry cattle so that the ritual power will be transferred to them. Therefore, there is a famous saying in case of Africa: cattle marry many times, man marries once. And generally it is perceived that since cattle are given to mother's family, therefore father is getting a wife. Without cattle exchange, children could not have been born. Therefore, primary right over the children is not extended to father. Primary right over the children is extended to mother's brother. Therefore, this kind of marriage is giving sustainability, justification to the domination of mother's brother over sister's children in many simple societies. So, you may be probably surprised to know that very many structural forms of marriages are there. And these kind of marriages are not barbaric. These kind of marriages are not unthinkable. These kind of marriages are defined, structured on the basis of the cultural and social conditionalities present there. Therefore, man makes social structure by developing social relationship, by creating social institution. Therefore, no institution, no structural practices are good or they are bad. They are legitimate or illegitimate in a given contextual situation at a given point of time or the other. Another interesting example one can be citing while speaking about marriage, and that marriage is present in case of Trobriand Islanders of Pacific. Malinowski talks about this kind of marriage. Trobrianders are a matrilineal society. In a matrilineal society, women are not supposed to marry. Because if women marry, there is a possibility that the man to whom one is marrying may be proclaiming right over the children, may be proclaiming right over the wife. Therefore, woman's domination in society will be compromised with or will be questioned. So, therefore, pattern of marriage, form of marriage is adjusted, keeping in mind the matrilineal character of society. It is generally believed in Trobriand society that sexual relationship between a man and a woman never gives rise to the birth of the children. It is perceived that when the ancestors or ancestors die, their spirits are hanging themselves into the top of the tree. When Trobriand women go to the seashore to collect firewood, the spirits enter into their body. That is how they get impregnated. So, pregnancy is not a product of sexual union between a man and woman. So culture creates myth to explain pregnancy as external to physiological proximity between a man and a woman. So therefore what happens, when the child is born, child is considered as the rebirth of the dead ancestors. Therefore over the child, father doesn't have any control, social control, cultural control or economic control. But a man is supposed to marry a woman. The marriage is present, sexuality is present. Over children, over property, a man doesn't have any kind of right. And a man is absolutely devoted, committed to offer varieties of gifts to his wife. And man is supposed to send gift to his wife's brother. And when wife's brother is giving smaller gifts to a man, it's a reminder to the man, this gift is not a gift. Through this gift, wife's brother is reminding him the fact that he is marrying to his sister, therefore it is his responsibility to look after his wife. Therefore there is marriage, there is institutionalized sexual relationship, but reproduction made by the women and the children born out of the sexual union are not within the control of man. Therefore matrilineal society defines marriage in one way. That is what is different from the definition of marriage as spelled out by patrilineal societies. When society changes, the definition of marriage changes, role of marriage changes, interrelationship among the people, those who are coming together through wedlock, that is also changing. Also, one will be finding out, in case of India, if one is looking into Khasi society, Garo society, there one will be finding out society is matrilineal. A woman is supposed to marry a man, but the status of a man within Khasi family, who is a husband, is the status of a woman in case of North Indian patriarchal society. A man is considered as an alien person to the family. He doesn't have any right over his wife and children, rather he has got responsibilities towards the family. Therefore, marriage is taking place, sexuality is taking place, but marriage is not giving a man entitlement rights over property, over power and over the reproductive roles played by the woman. Therefore, child belongs to woman and man doesn't have any right over the children. Also one finds out in Nair society, this is not practiced today, it was present in past. In Nair society one finds out that pre-puberty marriage takes place. Young boy can marry to a young girl belonging to same caste. And that is conforming to the rules of endogamy. However, the marriage is dissolved on the same day itself. Therefore, there is ritual marriage which is not translating into sexuality. And after this marriage is dissolved, the girl lives in her own place and boy is living in his own place. After the girl gets puberty, she is entitled to keep sexual relationship with other men on the basis of her choice. And most of the men, those who are brothers to the girl, they go out of the family to join war force, spend their youth in the war front, and when they come back, they find out in their family present sisters and children born out of different sources. Therefore, a mother-headed family system develops because of this legitimate form of sexuality endorsed by the culture. When these men come back, they don't marry. They keep sexual relationship, visiting relationship with other women belonging to same caste. As a result, Nair women reproduce children either through primarily sexual employment of Nair men or primarily Brahmin men. So, if you look into all this conditionality, you find out that not by encouraging women to go for marriage, it is ensured that women keep control over family when men are not around. Women produce children from different sources for which fatherhood is not established. As a result, brothers and sisters along with the sisters' children, they live together to give a momentum to matrilineal family system. If one looks into many tribal societies of India, one would be finding out marriage by capture is present. In past Naga society, marriage by capture was present. Nagas were a patriarchal society, warrior community. Being a warrior community, they get a sense of pride if they lift the woman, that consequently give rise to warfare between the bride's group and the groom's group. If the groom's group is winning the war, they manifest their masculinity, establish right over the woman. Therefore, marriage by capture is an institution developed in a patriarchal society to explain the masculinity of an individual. In case of many tribes of central India, marriage by intrusion was a form of practice. If a girl is developing fascination towards a boy, she is supposed to enter into the boy's house and express his eagerness or eagerness to marry the boy. Then she has to go through a series of trials, draw drinking water from the village pond, collect firewoods. So different kinds of tasks will be given to her by the boy's mother. And if she successfully, undergoes through this kind of test, then that marriage takes place between the girl and the boy. In many parts of the country, traditionally speaking, elder women having children were preferred for marriage than the young girls or the girls, those who have attended puberty. So now, elderly women with children are preferred for the reason that when a woman is coming along with a number of children, there are more hands to work. Therefore, young man marries elderly women who is having children from other husbands, and they still get married, live together to constitute a family. So, therefore, forms of marriages are different, patterns of marriages are different, outcomes of this marital alliance is also greatly different. Therefore, many anthropologists were reflecting on various kinds of marriages, rituals at marriage, structure of marriage in different simple societies to explain it is difficult to give an universal definition to marriage. It is very important to note that types of marriage or typological approach to marriage was getting a momentum by the early anthropologists and sociologists. Sociologists look at marriage not by explaining marriage types, but by developing concepts which could be defining marriage. These concepts like monogamy, one man, one woman. Polygamy, many women marrying to many men. If man is one, women are many. This is known as polygyny. Poly means many, gyne means women. If many women are marrying one man, that is polygyny. If men are many, women is one. That is known as polyandry. If many brothers are marrying to a common woman, paternal polyandry. If one man is marrying many women, Adolphic polyandry. If many sisters are marrying to primarily one man, sororal polygyny. So different kinds of concepts are developed here. by the sociologist to explain or to map different kinds of marriages present in different societies at different points of time. If one looks into Hindu Indian society, we were also practicing different kinds of marriages. Pure form of marriages were Brahma Vivaha, Daiva Vivaha, Prajapati Vivaha. But Asur Vivaha, Pisach Vivaha, Rakshas Vivaha, marriage by intoxication, marriage by force, marriage by kidnapping somebody, these were considered as unacceptable forms of marriages. Therefore, marriage is legitimate, marriage is illegitimate. And the status given to the people, children, coming out of legitimate marriage was different from the status given to the children coming out of illegitimate marriage. Therefore, marriage is defined by the culture of society. When culture changes, forms of marriage changes. So interestingly, therefore, one will be finding out that all simple societies, tribal societies, had different forms and patterns of marriage, and anthropological studies find out sexuality and marriage were not correlated to each other. Youth dormitories were present in many dominant tribal communities of India. And in youth dormitories, young boys and girls were meeting each other and they are developing sexual proximity. In some occasions, people having sexual proximity within the dormitories were preferring to marry. Many others were primarily going for sexuality, which was not getting translated into marriage. Therefore, perfected form of marriage driven by controlled sexuality, which is experienced after marriage, was greatly laughable experience in case of tribal societies. Therefore, marriage was a kind of association between two persons to live together for some time. The way they prefer to live together, in the same way they can also get separated. In many tribal societies, there are instances where people can tear a leaf into two parts and get separated. So therefore, meanings are attached to marriage. Some say it is a kind of sacrament. Others say marriages are made in the heaven, consummated on this earth. Some people say marriage cannot be dissolved, it's an act of sin. So these are all cultural constructs. So therefore, one has to look into marriage, reflecting on the changing nature of society and changing nature of culture. You know, with the rise of private wealth, permanent settlement, centralized state, patriarchy came into prominence. What is patriarchy? That is being debated today. Patriarchy means the control of a man over the sexuality of a woman, productive power of a woman, and reproductive roles of a woman. And many feminists find out today, and others also agree with them, that patriarchy is universal in character. It is present in mild form, institutionalized form, or expandable form in different societies. As we have seen, in case of Nair society, brothers come back from the battlefront, control over family property, offer guidance to women and children belonging to the group. Though society is called as matrilineal, but hidden within a matrilineal society where marriage is absent, man's control over women's productive role, man's control over women's sexuality and reproduction is greatly institutionalized. Because children are not controlled by women, children are controlled by men. Therefore, patriarchy is a kind of attempt that is controlling over women's productive power, reproductive power and sexuality. And this patriarchy as an institution develops when people go for warfare. Men fight war, they are registering victory, capturing the property of others. Therefore, men slowly control over the public world, where wealth is present, power is present. So this world is controlled by man. As a result, man is making woman family bound. Therefore, nature-culture divide comes into prominence. What women are to nature, that man is to culture. And society is teaching these women values, virtues, that they should be homebound. They should be socializing to their children. They should be giving importance on reproductive roles. Therefore, production becomes the domain of man, reproduction becomes the concern of woman. Therefore, between men and women, inequality is established because of the persistence of patriarchy. And once patriarchy is developed, different kinds of patriarchies are developed. And that is primarily explaining the forms of marriage. I will be giving some examples here. If you look at Hindu patriarchy, it's clearly spelled out that putra is a kind of dhan. Kanya is meant for dan. Therefore, a woman or a girl is to be donated to others. Aputrik goes to hell. A man who is not blessed with a son is going to hell. But by giving your hand in marriage to another man, you earn punya. And that punya is directing you towards Swarga, heaven. So this I called as Hindu patriarchy. So since Kanya is meant for Dan, when you are giving this Kanya in terms of Dan, to supplement this Dan, you have to go for Dakshina. And Dakshina is what? Dowry. So therefore, marriage in case of Hindu society, when driven by the ideology that girls are to give in as a gift to others, and that gift should be supported by gifts, supplementary gifts, that is dowry. So that leads to the growth of inferiority in the heart and soul of women. Therefore, marriage puts women into the state of inferiority. And that inferiority is a cultural construct. And because of that, one finds out that women develop self-doubt. They compromise with their dignity, their freedom, accept the kind of rules given to you through this institution of marriage, accepting to inherent inequality, and that is stabilizing, consolidating patriarchal society. So when I talk about Hindu patriarchy compels a woman to be devoted to her husband, ekapati vrat. Woman is supposed to keep fast on different days of a week for the well-being of the members of the family. So therefore, entire life of woman becomes family-centric. Therefore, marriage puts women into an asymmetrical disadvantage. Amartya Sen talks about it. And this asymmetrical disadvantage experienced by woman is further getting intensified when a woman is going for divorce. So therefore, divorce is not giving woman advantage over a man. First, marriage gives rise to disadvantage to a woman. She is becoming family bound, dependent, looking after the children, their socialization, their education, her productive time is being invested on the domestic household, which is neither recognized nor it is paid for. And subsequently, this disadvantage is culminated when she is going for a divorce. Because so many years of productive experience is being invested on reproductive and socializing activities. Therefore, when she gets a divorce at a later age, she doesn't have that productive capability. And she is not getting a chance to utilize that productive capabilities to go for economic sustainability or economic glorification. So therefore, all these kinds of disadvantages being accumulated together is talking about how patriarchy is putting women into a state of inherent disadvantage. So, one has to keep in mind that marriage is a patriarchal construct which is standing on the way of gender inequality in society. And lot of feminists are primarily speaking about it. So, one should be keeping in mind that this patriarchy has developed in human history with the rise of centralized state, acceleration of warfare, growth of private property. So, therefore, in case of agrarian society, sustainability of family was given importance. And to make family sustainable, religions came into prominence, moralized the institution called as marriage. So, Catholicism moralized marriage, institution of marriage. It gives importance on the fact that married people should be standing committed to each other. Similarly, in case of Hinduism, you look into, different texts are written, divine projection are given, that your gods go for monogamy, man should also be going for monogamy, one should be maintaining sexual purity, and marriage is a form of sacrament. Because through marriage, life becomes complete. Because of marriage, we get a chance to play our ritual responsibilities effectively. Therefore, marriage is a primary indication to completion of life. The concept like ekapatni, ekapati, ardhangini, so these kind of concepts are used to glorify the ritual significance of marriage or sacramental character of Hindu marriage. So therefore, when agrarian society develops, feudal society develops, patriarchy comes into prominence, and patriarchy gives importance on the institution of marriage. Different religions are justifying to monogamous marriage, and monogamous marriage is giving a chance to man to use women as a reproductive agency so that children born out of these women will be inheriting private property and the system will be subjected to continuity. Then comes industrial society. And in industrial society, there are no rules that one should be marrying within his own caste. So, there is no rule to say, or provision, cultural provision to say, that children should be born into this particular sex or that particular sex. Therefore, industrial society is a society that gives enormous freedom to man and woman as well. Therefore, men and women, those who are dislinked from their kinship group, living in the urban cities, metropolitan cities, participating in productive activities, enjoying differential class position, are endowed with the freedom to decide whom they are going to marry, how long they are going to stay within wedlock, what will be the number of children, what kind of roles they are going to play towards the children, whether they want children or they don't want children. So everything is decided by the persons themselves. In the initial stage of industrial society, monogamous marriage got a prominence. People belonging to different ethnic groups, like African Americans, if you take American society into consideration, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, non-Hispanic Americans. So all the people went into urban societies, industrial complexes, to make fortune for themselves. And industrial families are expensive and non-expandable, since women are working for a longer period of time. So they go for primarily fertility control measures. As a result, size of the family is becoming smaller. 2 parents, 1 child, or many situations delayed primarily childbirth, because it is affecting to women's health, which may be having direct impact on family economic fortunes. Therefore, fertility started declining in case of Western society. Replacement level reached to primarily 1, 2 or at times 0. And women lived longer, their health, quality of health became primarily what? Progressive. So therefore, we found out a trend developed in Western society where many people married, more so women, at a late age. Many decided not to marry because of economic freedom. Many decided to marry, but the romantic dreams they had about marriage, that was nowhere seen after their marriage. So therefore, some people, they went for marriage, sustained for some time, then went for divorce, went for remarriage. Others went for marriage, didn't primarily experience something big that they're romanticizing earlier within marriage and family system, but still they preferred to go for marriage, stay on with marriage for differential reasons. Others decided not to marry. People started living with each other, giving credence to their friendship. So different kinds of situations developed here. As a result, we find out empowerment of women, feminist movement, economic well-being of the women, rise of welfare states, legislative provisions. So that largely affected to the people's perception of marriage and family. So therefore, in today's context, when we see, we find out mostly that people's perception of marriage is changing, and changing for differential reasons. And some people say that when marriage is no longer persisting, people are refusing to deliver the children. That is bringing in immense crisis in society. Others say preference not to marry is a form of liberation of women. Preference not to marry is not going to put an end to the institution of reproduction. Now we have advanced form of technology developing. Using this technology, one can donate his sperm. Another person can donate the egg. One will be carrying this child. So through the use of modern technology, one can plant the sperm and egg into the body of another person. That person is carrying the child. And once the child is born, there is another person coming forward who is rearing the child. And by the time child is born, the sperm donor may be dead, egg donor may be dead. So therefore, different kinds of problems, possibilities, crises are making appearance. So therefore, we find out today, debate and discussion is taking place pertaining to the institution of marriage. And also today one finds out, marriage is no longer conceived as ethical necessity. Marriage is no longer conceived as an economic necessity. Completeness of life is not defined in terms of marriage. Therefore, when people are questioning to marriage, challenging to marriage, accepting to marriage for different reasons, as the students of sociology, we look into societal change in the reflection to changing nature of marriage. So few illustrations I'll be bringing in here. There is a possibility that a woman is going for marriage. She is not enjoying her marriage, going for a divorce. Her sister is also experiencing same kind of handicap with marriage. Freedom is curtailed. And both these sisters are preferring to live together under a common roof, putting their income together. So here no marriage is taking place, but household patterns is developing, consisting of two women. Those who are emotionally dependent on each other. Similarly, one finds out various forms of sexualities are getting recognized by different societies and states. Homosexuality is recognized by different states. Therefore, sexual partners are living together who are not going for wedlock. So, lesbian families are developing, gay families are developing, and in many situations, two friends are living together with limited responsibility and no long-term commitment. So therefore, families are developing, household patterns are developing without giving any moral credence or without giving any legal credence to the institution of marriage. And in many situations, sexual partners are living together. And these sexual partners decide not to bear any children. So therefore, sexual relationship is there. That is legitimate. Emotional connectivity is there. But childbirth is not appreciated. So this kind of trend is developing in contemporary context. And in many situations one finds out in European society, on the divorce, the responsibility of children is extended to women. As a result, mother-centric families are developing. And these mothers who are quasi-literate, belonging to different ethnic groups, suffering from poverty, dependent on state grace or concession, are evolving into poorest families in case of Western societies. And that we call today as feminization of poverty. So marriage breaks down. A woman takes up the responsibility of the children. Therefore, she is not able to use her productive labor effectively to generate wealth to improve her class position. As a result, one finds out single parent families or mother headed families are the most poorest families in case of America. And out of these mother headed families, if the mother is African American, that family is going to suffer from extreme poverty. So therefore, the whole idea of marriage, the conventional meaning we are carrying about it, is no longer carrying any merit in different Western societies. So therefore, one should find out when society is changing, culture is changing, people's perception towards marriage, people's perception towards fertility, people's perception towards childbirth, people's perception towards family and society also keeps on changing. Therefore, whether you live with a family or you don't live with a family, if with family, what kind of family? That is determined by individual choice, determined by the prescriptions of society. Therefore, without family, societies are still sustaining. With family, we had a society in past. Therefore, disappearance of family or changing nature of family may bring crisis, tension, anxiety in society, but that will never bring end to the social life.
Okay. So, well friends, with this word we conclude the lecture, and I thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on your behalf I thank Dr. Subhas Mahapatra for giving such an insightful lecture on this very topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.